This is Linda Zagzebski. She's an American philosopher born in 1946. She remains active in the profession, and she is one of the most well-known epistemologists in recent decades, most especially famous for a view in virtue epistemology, where she develops a very original account of intellectual or epistemological virtues based on the Aristotelian framework. Okay. So yeah, she's in her 70s, but like I said, she's pretty active, and I can tell you that her view is one that I admire, which is why I require some of her papers for their epistemology class. Just to clarify, when someone like me, a philosophy teacher, says I admire a certain view or a certain philosopher, it doesn't mean that I agree with everything that they say or that everything that they wrote about is to be praised. Usually, preferences or admiration for the view of philosopher means that the person saying it, in this case me, want to engage more with the view. So there are certainly things that she says and she writes that I don't fully accept, but I think even when I disagree with her, her points are very interesting and something that we can all learn from. So this article that you're reading right now, it's very straightforwardly written, as is usual. It's not very easy to read. It's still a philosophical text, and by not easy to read, I mean it's not like reading a newspaper or a Harry Potter book or anything like that. But I think it's one of the more well-written philosophical texts, not least because we know what question she's answering in the title uh, of the piece, and then also we know what her answer is. She begins with laying out what her answer is going to be to the question, what is knowledge? And if you skim the paper, if you skim the reading for this week before you start reading it, you will know that the full answer, the full definition of knowledge, or the full answer to the question, what is knowledge, is contained right in the middle of page 109. I already have part of the definition quoted here, but I will talk more about this definition and read the fuller or longer excerpt from that page later on towards the end of the recording. So for now, we'll read this. According to Zagzebski, all forms of knowledge involve contact of the mind with reality. And so a more comprehensive definition of knowledge that includes knowledge by acquaintance as well as propositional knowledge would be: knowledge is cognitive contact with reality arising out of acts of intellectual virtue. So the highlighted portion, the part that I emphasize by making the font color pink, is the crucial part of the definition. And we'll have to unpack that in this recording, and you have to think about it a lot more as you read. But I want you to take note that in the first few paragraphs of the reading, Zagzebski goes through a discussion of what beliefs are, and then also what propositional knowledge is and what knowledge by acquaintance is. So one very interesting thing about this definition of knowledge that Zagzebski presents, and we don't see this in the JTB definition, I'm not sure it's also in the KSA definition from Greco, or the KSA idea, knowledge as success from ability, is the coverage of knowledge by acquaintance. Knowledge by acquaintance is something that we get when we have direct contact with something, direct cognitive contact with something. So if you say, you know a place, if you know Quezon City, for instance, or you know Laguna Lake, or you know Manila Bay, that means you did not just, and you have knowledge by acquaintance of Manila Bay. Let's stick with that example. It is not something that you just read about or heard about or saw a video of. It's something that you know because you've been there, you know what it's like to be there, you know what it looks like, you know what it smells like. You know, in the case of Manila Bay, one of the things that it's famous for is, despite many of the problems associated with the place, is that it's a good place to see the sunset. So knowledge by acquaintance is covered by this definition, not just propositional knowledge or the kind of knowledge that is captured in propositions. Okay, so let's move on. So the overall project of Zagzebski, just zooming back, or this is like a zoom out view. So this is the cover of her view. It's a book that was published in 1996. It's one of the main sources for virtue epistemology, and it's called Virtues of the Mind. So in the subtitle is An Inquiry into the Nature of Virtue and the Ethical Foundations of Knowledge. So this is a very interesting and provocative idea. When Zagzebski came out with a view, she was actually saying that epistemology is a branch of ethics. Nobody really thinks that, or nobody really said that before she came out with the idea. I'm not sure that people are necessarily convinced that epistemology is indeed a branch of ethics, but I think Zagzebski has convinced a lot of people to think in terms of the overlaps or the continuities between what's happening in ethics and what's happening in epistemology, especially in the domain of virtue. So that's something that we'll talk about a lot more starting this week. So in the introduction for this book, so this is a quote that they get from the introduction, we get a description of her overall project. So I'm just introducing her overall project of her broader epistemological view, apart from the kind of ideas that you see in the What is Knowledge book chapter. So Zagzebski says in the near the beginning of her book, I will argue that the relationship between the evaluation of cognitive activity and the evaluation of acts in the overt sense, usually reserved to ethics, is more than an analogous one. I will argue that the intellectual virtues are so similar to the moral virtues in Aristotle's sense of the latter, they ought not to be treated as two different kinds of virtue. Intellectual virtues are, in fact, forms of moral virtue. So, specifically, Zagzebski focuses on two dimensions of moral virtue, the element of motivation and the element of success. The element of motivation really is connected to agency or the kind of choices that an individual makes. Sa ethics kasi malinaw na may sangkot na pagpili pag may ginawa ka. Pag may ginawa ka isang bagay, pag may ginawa ako, halimbawa, isang bagay na matatawag nating matapang, ibig sabihin noon, nagkaroon ako ng pagpili na harapin yung takot ko at saka lampasan. Kaya masasabi nating matapang pag may maganda o mabuting pagpili na may kinalaman sa takot. Yung taong matapang or taong gumawa ng bagay na matapang, hindi natin masasabi na hindi yun natatakot. Pero kinikilala natin na sa kabila ng takot na nararamdaman at nararanasan niya, nakita niya at pinili niya na may mas mahalaga kaysa sa takot na yon. Halimbawa, mas mahalaga na sabihin ko yung sabihin na natin to kasi may kinalaman sa epistemology. Mahalaga na sabihin ko yung totoo. Mahalaga na kumibo ako kahit nakakatakot na baka pag kumibo ako may sinabi ako magalit sila sa akin o kaya magkaroon ng panganib tungkol sa kalagayan ko sa buhay, etc. So the paradigm moral virtue is courage, not least because it's a virtue that Aristotle directly talks about in the Nicomachean Ethics. So ngayon hindi na ganun kagulat-gulat itong idea na pagka epistemology yung pinag-usapan natin, kasi kagaya rin nung nakita natin sa etika ng kagalingan. Yun yung pagsasali ng virtue ethics sa Filipino. So the idea here is Aristotelian in the sense that it follows the model of Aristotle's understanding of moral virtue, but actually it's not in Aristotelian in the sense that Aristotle never said that intellectual virtues are like moral virtues or are forms of moral virtue, because Aristotle actually talks about intellectual virtues, but he does not talk about it in the same way that Zagzebski does. Ano yung batayan ng pagsasabi ni Zagzebski na may malapit na pagkaugnayan itong intellectual virtue sa isang banda at moral virtue sa kabilang banda? I think it's very important to recognize that moral virtue. So why are we trying to be brave? Why are we ano bang punto ng pagiging matapang? Sa punto de vista ng mga sinulat ni Aristoteles, malinaw kung ano yung punto. Nagsisikap tayong maging makatarungan, matapang, bukas palad, etc. Kasi gusto natin makuha o marating yung eudaimonia, yung mabuti at magandang buhay na nararapat sa tao. So eudaimonia is life worth living, and it's true that a life worth living, a happy life, a life of flourishing for human beings necessarily involves knowledge. Yung pagiging tao may kakabit na tungkulin na umalam. Hindi ka pwedeng maging magaling at mabuting tao na hindi mo nalalaman kung ano yung nangyayari sa sarili mo, sa sarili mong buhay, at saka dun sa mga nangyayari sa kapaligiran mo, at saka sa mga tao sa paligid mo. So the intuition or the basic idea is kind of easy to understand or to grasp after you think about the involvement of knowledge in the good life for human beings. Okay, so let's look at some details of Zagzebski's view. So in the first place, this is one of the basic things, and this is in connection with, again, with belief is to think with assent, right? So in the first place, knowledge is a relation. Knowledge is always a relation. Knowledge is a relation between a conscious subject, whom we consider an agent, na meron siyang pagpili sa kung ano yung gagawin niya dun sa kakayahan niyang umalam. Kasi kahit na sinong tao, kahit na saan, may kakayahan o may potential na umalam. But there can be a relation initiated and sustained and acted upon by the conscious subject between herself, her mind, her cognitive capacities, on the one hand, and some portion of mind-independent reality. So knowledge is a relation between a conscious subject and some portion of reality, usually understood to be mediated through a proposition. In the state of knowledge, a knower is related to a true proposition. So kaya meron akong dito ng match. Kasi yun yung yun yung correspondence na idea of truth. So we have a conscious subject, and there is a match between what is in her consciousness, what is in her mind, what her cognitive capacities represent, and what is actually in reality. So dito pwede nating tukuyin na ito siguro masasabi na itong kahon ng posporo. Ito yung mind-independent reality. Ito yung bahagi ng mundo. Ito yung paglalarawan, this captures, this can be the proposition in the mind of the knower. At yung conscious subject, yung taong umaalam, nasa isip niya, binubuo niya, kumbaga iginuguhit niya sa isip niya kung ano yung inilalarawan niya doon sa isip niya, kung ano yung itsura noong in this case itsura kasi nga 'di ba, parang it's the visual appearance of a matchbox, of a box of matches. Now this is very important to remember that knowledge is always a relation between a conscious subject and some portion of reality. So yung pag-alam, meron siyang kinalaman doon sa aktibo na paggamit ng mga kakayahan. Kasi ito, makikita natin ito, ginuhit ito ng isang ng isang tao na yung para kung umaalam ka ang galaw ng isip mo, yung paglalarawan o pagsunod so kung ano yung hugis ng mundo, kung ano yung nakikita mo sa mundo. At kung merong match, kung merong correspondence between kung ano yung nasa mundo, in this case represented by the actual box of matches, and what is in your mind that you represented, usually through a proposition. Here, it's not a linguistic proposition, but it's a picture. In some senses, so that's the representation in the mind of the knower, right? So knowledge is always a relation. Okay, now balikan natin to kasi meron tayong mahalagang pag-uusapan tungkol dito. Alam na natin ito kasi module 1 pa lang, parang ang tagal na nun. Pinag-uusapan na ito. Knowledge is a kind of belief, and beliefs are mental states. So, and this is very important. Beliefs are mental states. Beliefs are actually mental activity. Kung ano yung nangyayari sa isip ng isang nilalang na pwedeng umalam. Hindi lang naman tao yun. Minsan hayop na pwede rin makaalam kung anong nangyayari sa paligid niya. So beliefs are mental states, and to have a belief about something is to be in a mental state that represents that thing. But we have to qualify that kasi hindi lahat ng alam natin palaging nasa harap, no, parang hindi lahat ng alam natin nasa mismong diwa natin palagi. So one way of saying that is that to have a belief about something is to be in a mental state that represents that thing. But you're not actively representing to yourself everything that you believe. It's not occurrent. Ibig sabihin ng occurrent yung nangyayari sa isip mo sa mismong minuto o segundo na yon. Bigyan ko ito kayo ng halimbawa. We have beliefs that are there in our minds. It's a representation of reality. We retrieve it, but we're not always consciously thinking about it. For instance, think about your belief about when your birthday is. Kung kailan man yon, hindi nyo yun palaging iniisip, hindi nyo palaging, ang birthday ko ay ganito. Parang kung anong specific date. I guess somebody might be thinking about that kung malapit na yung birthday niya tapos meron siyang mga plano. Pero usually, that particular belief is something we can retrieve on command. So it's there. It's part of our mental architecture, maybe we can say, but it's part of the way we picture or represent the world, but it's not occurrent, meaning it's not always at the forefront of our minds all the time. That would be very tiring to have all your beliefs at the forefront of your mind all the time. Probably if we try to do that, we will not be able to do anything productive. Okay, so most of the time, we do not actively think about the things that we believe. Hindi nga natin kinikilala na may elemento ng pagpili sa kung ano yung pinaniniwalaan natin. Parang automatic, parang hinihigop lang natin kung ano yung mga impormasyon o mga datos o mga karanasan na dumarating sa atin. Nakikita natin, naririnig natin, etc. So one question is, and this becomes relevant when we recognize the agency of the knower and how assenting or dissenting or refusing to assent to a belief involves agency. Is that, do we take responsibility for how beliefs take hold in our minds? So dahil nga kung sa larangan ng etika ng kagalingan, kung may tungkulin tayo o may responsibilidad, pwede tayong sisihin kung naging matapang ba tayo o duwag. Meron kung may pagpapatuloy yung usapan na ganon sa larangan ng epistemolohiya, pwede rin nating tanungin, meron ba tayong mga sistema ng o paraan ng paniniwala na pwede tayong sisihin dahil ganun yun na lang na pag kami sinabi tong kapitbahay ko, maniniwala ako. Parang ganun. Pero parang hindi na ako conscious tungkol doon. Parang basta na lang nangyayari. So do we take responsibility for how beliefs take hold in our minds? And what about the way in which beliefs take hold in people's minds in our communities? Kasi yung personal responsibility about how beliefs take hold in my mind, that's more directly within our control. Something that's not directly within our control, but we can probably argue that it's something that we can influence, is the way that people around us, in our communities, people we talk to, people we interact with on a daily basis, how do beliefs take hold in people's minds in our communities? Right? So pagka pinag-uusapan yung intellectual virtue at malinaw yung pagtingin doon sa pagpili at saka dun sa motibasyon, pwede natin tanongin itong mga ganitong tanong na hindi natin nakikita ng eksaktong ganitong paraan nung belief-based epistemology tsaka JTB definition. Okay. So, and of course, today we are asking questions about about patterns of belief formation in the context of two things, misinformation and disinformation. Babalikan ko to. Mayroon lang akong paglilinaw dito kasi may pagkalito dito sa pagkakaiba ng misinformation at disinformation. Misinformation is to spread the false belief through accident or the commission of a comparatively innocent mistake. Halimbawa, misinformation kasi mali yung dinig mo, o kaya mali yung basa mo, o kaya medyo hindi kumpleto yung naalala mo dun sa binigay sa'yo na inilatag ng ebidensya nung nakausap mo kanina o kahapon. So nagkakaroon ng misinformation, tapos sabihin mo yan sa ibang tao. So kakalat yung mali information, pero wala ka namang intention na masama. Parang may pagkakamali lang. Disinformation is something different because disinformation happens when false beliefs spread through strategic deception. Disinformation usually involves malice and an active effort, and it's really very insidious in social media. Disinformation happens when there is an effort to make more people believe false things, or even just doubt true things. Kayong nakita natin dun sa martial law at saka yung iba't ibang bagay pa sa tungkol sa kasaysayan ng mundo at saka kung flat ba yung whether the earth is flat or whether the climate crisis is real. Disinformation is very effectively spread by questioning the truth. So just casting doubt on it. So magkalat ka lang ng iba't ibang information and then medyo magpakilala ka ng duda sa isip ng mga tao, magsisimula silang, hindi ko alam. Tapos mamaya mapapagod na sila, hindi naman sila mag-iimbestiga, marami silang ginagawa. Hanggang sa kumalat na mali yung pinaniwala ng mga tao o hindi nila tinatanggap kung ano yung totoo. So disinformation is something that happens because there are bad actors. So ito yung sinasabi kong malice kanina behind the spread of false belief or the widespread tendency to reject true beliefs. Okay. So ito yung isa sa mga tanong ni Zagzebski na makikita natin ng mas matingkad yung element ng yung bahagi ng pagpili. So sabi niya, una, knowledge is valuable or desirable. I think this is uncontroversial and rather obvious. Knowledge is better than ignorance. Knowledge is better than mere opinion. But Zagzebski asks a very interesting question. Okay, knowledge is valuable or desirable. It is good. But it is, in what way is it good? So yun yung tanong niya. As meron siyang 3 comparison points, ano? So there are 3 things that are also good. So alin yung saan natin ihahanay yung knowledge dyan? So is knowledge valuable or desirable like good looks? Is knowledge valuable or desirable like kindness? Or is knowledge valuable or desirable like saintliness. So isa-isayin natin. Makikita nyo yung sagot dun sa papel ni Zagzebski, pero pwede nyo ring isipin pwede nyo isipin using your common sense and your reasoning skills. Is knowledge valuable or desirable like good looks? Okay. So, first, let's acknowledge that good looks is valuable. Oh, okay. So physical attractiveness yan, kung ano man yung fashion about what is physically attractive at the moment, right? So if somebody is born with good looks, we say, swerte naman. Okay, swerte naman. Pinanganak na maganda, o kaya pinanganak na gwapo, okay, buti pa siya, parang ganon. Di ba? Parang, but is knowledge like that? Is knowledge valuable or desirable like good looks? Or is knowledge valuable or desirable like kindness? Okay. So, ang tanong dito, ano bang pagkakaiba ng good looks and kindness? One way to differentiate them, looking at the element of agency or the point where people choose is to ask, do we blame people? So when we say somebody is good looking, we say, okay, that's good for him, he's good looking. But if another person is not good looking, do we blame him? Baka sabihin mo talaga, ikaw talaga, bakit pinanganak ka na hindi good looking? Di ba? Parang hindi naman tayo naninisin ng tao na ganon. Bakit? Kasi yung pagiging maganda o mabuti o mahalaga nung good looks ay hindi batay sa pagpili ng tao. Nangyayari lang yan. Parang genetic lottery. Nangyari na ganun. Swerte niya. Yung sinabi ko kanina, di ba? Parang yung expression natin sa Filipino, buti pa siya. Pero kung may isang pang tao na hindi sinwerte na pinanganak ng gwapo, wala naman siyang kasalanan dun. Wala naman yun sa mga bagay na pwede niyang kontrolin, di ba? Kaya itong good looks, hindi yan batay sa motivation. Hindi yan batay sa pagpili. Hindi yan batay sa agency. Medyo aksidente. Parang sinuswerte yung nakakakuha, minamalas yung hindi nakakakuha. Kindness is not like that. Kindness is something that you work at. Treating people decently, respectfully, and being considerate, pagiging mabuti sa kapwa, pakipagkapwa, pinagsisikapan yan. At pag may pagkukulang tungkol dyan, kung ang pagtrato ng isang tao sa ibang tao ay hindi maganda, na hindi sila ginagalang, na bastos, etc., na walang pakialam, yung taong gumagawa ng ganun, pinili niya yun. Pinili niya yon. Kaya dahil pinili niya yon, pwede natin siyang sabihan na hindi ka dapat ganyan. Pwede natin siya sisihin na bakit ka ba ganyan? Diba? So that means it has value that depends on a person's choice. And for that reason, we can judge it as ethical or unethical, blameworthy or praiseworthy. Now, saintliness is good. Pagiging mabuti, yung kindness parang basic level decency. Yung saintliness is like above and beyond, right? So, knowledge is so ang sagot dito, knowledge is good or desirable in the way of kindness, in a way that's analogous or very similar to the value of kindness. It is something that we can attain through choices that we make, and knowledge is something that we can be blamed for not having. Na parang in the same way that we can blame someone for failing to be kind, we can blame someone for failing to know. Especially if that person has the opportunity and the intelligence to know something that is of value to herself and to people in her community, right? So, Zagzebski clarifies the manner or the exact way in which knowledge is valuable or desirable. And then in another part of her paper, after she discusses preliminary things, she tries to arrive at a real definition of knowledge. Kaya nga, yung what is knowledge, pag may tanong na ganon sa philo, di ba yung mga title ng Platonic dialogues, what is or yung hindi title pala, kasi yung title used ng mga Platonic dialogues usually pangalan ng tao. Pero yung pangunahing tanong sa mga dialogues ni Plato, halimbawa sa Republic, ang tanong ay, what is justice? Ang tanong sa Euthyphro, what is piety? Tapos pwede tayong magtanong, what is goodness? What is the good? Dito sa epistemology, siyempre ang tanong, what is knowledge? So, pagka nagtanong ng ganyan ng mga pilosopo, ang hinahanap nila, real definition. A real definition is a set of necessary truth that elucidates the nature of a thing. So, it's looking at the set of necessary and sufficient conditions that must be satisfied for something to count as knowledge. So parang ang real definition ay parang formula. Ang itsura ng real definition ay parang yung JTB. Ganon yung hinahanap dyan. Hindi ko na ilalatag lahat ng mga sinabi ni Zagzebski, pero dito sa punto sa gitna, itong bullet point na ito, bago niya ilatag yung paghahanap ng real definition, inisa-isa niya rin yung mga katangian ng good definition. So she comes up with a definition of knowledge, and in doing that, she lays out the characteristics of a good definition. And then when she offers a definition herself, she tries to convince the reader that her definition satisfies the characteristics of a good definition, and this starts on page 98. Right? So JTB is supposed to be a real definition. That is the conceit. For a very long time, philosophers have had this ambition. Some people say today illusion, that it's possible to define terms like knowledge, mind, good, virtue in the exact same way that scientists were able to give a precise definition of water. Kasi yung ordinary word, tubig, Filipino, water sa English, agua sa Espanyol, pareho yan ng referent sa mundo. Pero kahit na libong taon na ginamit ng maraming tao ang iba't ibang salita para tukuyin yung bagay na yun sa mundo, tubig, it's a scientific discovery it was a scientific discovery when we have this idea that water is H2O. So ganun yung itsura ng real definition. Yung H2O, that's a real definition of water. So water is a common sense term, and we can have a more precise definition of that. It's a molecule composed of two atoms of hydrogen bonded to one atom of oxygen. So, naghanap yung mga pilosopo ng ganito. Pero kasi, pagka naghanap ka ng real definition of knowledge in the same way that H2O is a real definition of water, that presupposes that knowledge is a natural kind. Kasi water is a natural kind. It is something that can be defined. Ano pa yung mga iba't ibang natural kind? Masasabi natin things like gold, tiger, etc. are natural kinds. They have very real boundaries of what counts as gold or what doesn't count as gold, or we have a very precise chemical definition of what counts as water and what doesn't count as water. So Zagzebski goes through the entire project of philosophers trying to come up with real definitions and truth condition analysis of knowledge. So this is the preferred method in philosophical discussion whenever we're trying to clarify something. Pero kasi hindi natin sigurado kung itong knowledge ay natural kind. For a long time, people have been assuming that it's a natural kind. Pero hindi lang naman ganyan ang mga the world is not populated or not filled only with natural kinds. There are kinds that are not natural. There are artifacts or artificial kinds. Halimbawa, ang magandang halimbawa ng artificial kind ay paperweight or bookmark. So a paperweight is something that we created and what counts as a paperweight depends on certain conventions and certain certain practices and certain norms. Meron din na artificial yun kasi ginawa natin yun eh. Gawa ng tao yung paperweight eh. Gawa ng tao yung bookmark, depende na kung PC, it can be a thread, the bookmark can be a thread, can be a leaf, can be like an actual thing that was designed and sold and bought as a bookmark, but it's an artifact it's a byproduct of human activity. There's another kind that's not an artifact, not a natural kind, and tinatawag na functional kind. Ang isang magandang halimbawa nitong functional kind ay poison. So there's no definition for poison in the same way that there's a chemical definition for water. Kasi what is poisonous depends on what organism is being considered. So poison is whatever substance causes metabolic problems, sickness, resulting in sickness or death in a particular plant or animal, in a particular living thing. So chocolate is not a poison for people, but it's a poison for dogs and other similar animals. So poison is a functional kind. We can define it in terms of its function. So maraming mga pilosopo nung simula, inisip nila natural kind yung knowledge. So naghanap sila ng definition na parang ang H2O. Yung JTB, ang ambition ay para yung H2O. It captures the essence of knowledge. Now, some philosophers now think that Craig, so ito yung iniisa-isa ni Zygzebski sa papel niya, may mga philosopher na inisip nila na knowledge is more like an artifact instead of a natural kind. There are still philosophers who argue that knowledge is a natural kind. And there seems to be philosophers who are more going for a functional definition. So in terms of what efficiently or reliably causes it, kung ano yung mga cause and effect relationships that are always present there. Okay. So Zygzebski has this very interesting perspective where she says, we're not sure if we can find a real definition for knowledge, but the only way to find out is if we try to come up with one. So we keep on trying to come up with a real definition. And if after a very long time of trying and we fail to find a real definition, then we might think it's likely there's no real definition. But pragmatically speaking, we can assume there could be a real definition and try to search for one. So ganun yung approach ni Zygzebski dito. And her proposal is to come up with a definition, and this is a move that we're already familiar with. I have introduced this move already before the midterm. So the crucial move is to move from properties of belief, so a definition of knowledge that looks at the special features of beliefs that count as knowledge, and move towards a consideration of the properties of persons. So the normative component of knowledge, the component that makes knowledge good, must entail truth, right? So that's the and the component that makes knowledge good, according to Zygzebski, is that it is connected to acts of intellectual virtue. So ito yung move ng virtue epistemologist, itong nasa gitna. She says, I suggest that it will be beneficial to move back a step from properties of beliefs to properties of persons in our search for a concept that attaches the good of knowledge to its truth, right? And that property is virtue. Virtues are properties of persons. Intellectual virtues are properties of persons that aim at intellectual goods. So intellectual goods include knowledge and understanding, and most especially truth. Moral virtues are properties of persons that aim at distinctively moral goods, such as the well-being of others. Okay. So virtues, intellectual virtues are properties of persons that are directed. So nakita natin, intellectual virtues are properties of persons connected to choice, motivation, what an agent actively goes for, and it is directed towards a certain goal. In the case of moral virtues, the goal is eudaimonia, which includes the well-being of others. In the case of intellectual virtues, the goal is epistemic goods, knowledge, truth, understanding. Truth, understanding. Okay. So we see here that excellent knowers have traits or characteristics that make him reliably successful in determining which, if any, belief or competing claim is true. So we move away from the properties of beliefs, we move to the properties of knowers. So we look at you look at excellences in knowers that makes them successful in getting at true beliefs, and we don't look at something that's completely theoretical or philosophical. So maghanap tayo ng mga katangian ng mga tao na magaling sila, meron silang kagalingan sa pag-alam tungkol sa kung ano yung totoo. And they have a certain reliability in that. It doesn't have to be a scientist. It doesn't have to be a journalist. It doesn't have to be a highly educated person. Pwedeng practical skill. Minsan yung binibigay ko na halimbawa dito, halimbawa kung merong isang tao na ang trabaho niya may kinalaman sa pagtatanim ng nyog, pag nakakita siya ng nyog, kahit di niya pa yun binubuksan, alam niya kung malamang bulok na yon, alam niya kung okay pa, pwede pang buksan at gawing kopra. Alam niya na kung teka, hindi yata ito nyog, buko yata ito. So alam niya sa pagtingin lang dun sa labas. So pwede niyang hawakan, pwede niyang timbangin sa kamay niya, at halos palagi tama siya. So reliably successful in determining which of any competing claims is true. Ito ba ay maayos na kopra? Ito ba itatapon ko na kasi malamang bulok? Ito ba ay hindi tube to? So this is something that we can identify it in particular agents, even if the particular agent concerned cannot theorize about it. Kasi talaga namang may galing yung tao na sa practical na bagay na ganun yung kaalaman niya. And this is something that we can build and train people for. And we can also move from excellent knowers, so that's individual agents, to excellent knowing communities that feature social systems. So papunta na ito sa social epistemology, magiging topic natin pagkatapos sa mga 2 o 3 linggo pa. Pero pinapakilala ko na ngayon kasi yung pagpunta natin dun sa definition ni Zagzebski, mahalaga itong social component. Not least because I'm going back to a particular Gettier case that we discussed before the midterms. So ito na. Gettier case again. So ito yung Detective Brenda case that is designed to create problems for Zagzebski's definition. The Detective Brenda case came from one of Zagzebski's former students, Jason Bayer. So kung maalala natin, itong si Detective Brenda ay nag-iimbestiga tungkol sa isang pagpatay at nakinig siya dahil bukas ang isip niya, open-minded siya. Pinakinggan niya yung sinasabi sa kanya ng mga kasamahan niya sa trabaho. Tapos, kaya naging tama yung pinaniniwalaan niya. So her true belief that the CEO did not kill the accountant may be connected to an act of intellectual virtue done by Brenda. So Brenda herself did an act of intellectual virtue, which is to exercise open-mindedness. She considered the possibility that she could be wrong, and she correctly rectified that by gathering information from what people around her believe. Unfortunately, because this is a Gettier case, her colleagues have been brainwashed by the CEO. So dito, mukhang pasok ito. There's an act of intellectual virtue. But what is happening in the case is Brenda's true belief is also connected to to intellectually vicious acts of the CEO and her colleagues and of the CEO and Brenda's colleagues. Kasi binrainwash itong CEO yung mga kasamahan sa trabaho ni Brenda. So ang masasabi natin dito, balikan natin yung definition of knowledge na nakikita natin kay Zagzebski at iisa-isahin ko kung paano pwedeng sumagot si Zagzebski kay Bayer dito sa halimbawang ito. So babasahin ko lang yung mas mahabang definition of knowledge dito sa page 109 ng reading para sa linggong ito. So sa bandang gitna, nakalagay, knowledge is cognitive contact with reality arising out of acts of intellectual virtue. Knowledge is generally not reached through a single act, but through a combination of one's own, as well as through the acts of others and cooperating circumstances. We tend to think of knowledge as our own accomplishment, but this is rarely the case. The fact that our knowledge depends upon the knowledge and intellectual virtue of a host of other persons in our intellectual community, as well as a cooperating universe, makes it clear that we cannot expect to isolate the conditions for knowledge in some set of independent properties of the knower, much less a set of properties over which the knower has control. Epistemic luck permeates the human condition, whether for good or for ill. So ito na naman yung punto niya tungkol sa inescapability of Gettier cases because of luck. So ano masasabi ni Zagzebski dito sa Gettier case nito para patunayan na yung kanyang definition of knowledge ay may katinuan pa rin kahit na may mga Gettier cases na katulad dito. So she can point out that knowledge is cognitive contact with reality arising out of acts of intellectual virtue, and an act of intellectual virtue must not be considered in isolation because we see here that the act of intellectual virtue can be attributed to Brenda, pwede siguro, pero dito intellectually vicious yung CEO ay agent of disinformation ng brainwash ng mga tao. Tapos ito namang colleagues ni Brenda ay na brainwash na nga. So intellectually vicious yung bandang. So doon nakuha. So ibig sabihin yung because of relation na pinahahalagahan dito sa definition ni Zagzebski ay hindi na-satisfy. Right? So I'm going to enumerate the different things that have to be met following Zagzebski's definition. So knowledge is cognitive contact with reality arising out of intellectual virtue. And when this definition is satisfied, we see that the agent's cognitive faculties that are relevant for the intellectual virtue are functioning properly. So check yung okay yung cognitive faculties. Check ito kay in the case of Brenda. The agent is situated in an environment that is well suited for her use of these cognitive faculties. This is we can say the asocial environment, so physical environment, to lighting conditions and other related things. And the other thing is the social environment. The agent is situated in a knowing community in which acts of intellectual virtue performed by others help her or assist her in arriving at a true belief or at attaining cognitive contact with reality. Medyo incomplete sentence itong third bullet point. Okay. And she has the appropriate level of cognitive access to the reasons or evidence to support a belief that she comes to hold through an act of intellectual virtue. In the case of Brenda, hindi met X itong third condition. At saka X, and because of that, X din tong fourth condition. So that means Zagzebski is able to avoid or escape Gettier cases because of through the definition of knowledge that she provides, in which the because of clause is very important. To know more about the because of clause or what that phrase means and why it's important, make sure to read the text closely. That's it for this recording.